David Wright had his annual Vegas night to benefit a children's hospital in his home state of Virginia. He spoke to MLB.com's Anthony DiComo, friend of the show, about where he is mentally and physically heading into this season after yet another surgery. And here's part of what David Wright said. It really hurts to say this, but I obviously can't be relied on to go out there and do what I've done throughout my career. Everything is a concern for me. I haven't progressed to the point where I'll know how it feels to throw a baseball until we get closer to spring. I certainly don't know how the back is going to hold up. When the end comes, the end comes. Hopefully, I've got a little more left, but I guess that's to be determined. A lot to talk about here because this is very different from the positivity that we've heard from David Wright throughout these surgeries. He's been the one guy saying, I feel like I can get back out there. Todd, do you think that that's changing his message to try and make people less hopeful, to try and give a more realistic picture? Or do you think this is a guy who really is feeling like chances of him playing again are slim?
I think the reality is probably that he's becoming a little bit more at home with the real reality that it may not happen. And I think there has to be, at some point, you want to be the guy that says, I'm going to go back out there and do it. I'm rah-rah. I'm a competitive guy. I'm going to give it all I got. But at some point, there's a credibility issue, too. If he keeps saying that and then breaks down, people are going to wonder whether it's actually accurate or not. So I think there's some level of just fact-finding and truth and some level of realism that he's like, hey, I really want to try hard, but I'm not promising anything going into this season.
And Andy, has anything changed? I mean, did he get a bad diagnosis? Has he been working out and hasn't been going well? Or is this just kind of where David Wright is mentally? Like, his tone changed, but has anything actually changed?
Well, look, he's been going through the process for a while. I guess what's changed is that he's still unsure. He was on the field towards the end of last season trying to actually play in baseball games down in St. Lucie. Obviously, that didn't go well. I believe it was 2 surgeries that followed a couple of games in the minor leagues. So he's a realist. I don't think that there's anything that's spin about this or a message changing. You know, Todd's known him longer, but I met David Wright in 2008. And I saw him go through a couple different phases of the way he would talk and the level of honesty. Early on as a kid, he was super open, super earnest, great kid. Around 2010 or so, I would say that he became a little more robotic. He put a lot of pressure on himself as the face of the Mets. You didn't really know. Like, it was just a lot of cliches and stuff. And then when he signed this extension and became the team captain, he became one of the most honest quotes and good guys to talk to. I mean, he's always been a really good guy, good human being, but good guys to talk to from a media standpoint that I've ever known. So when David Wright says something, Sal, it just tells me that he means it. So clearly he's not in an optimistic place with his career right now.
I've always found him, to be honest, not knowing him, not covering him obviously as close as you guys have. But this is why for the last few years, when I'm saying on the air, David Wright would say this himself. You cannot rely on him. You can't count on him building this team, constructing this team, and moving forward. And, of course, David Wright has now come out and said that, in fact, himself. The difference has been that now we're, 3 years removed from the initial stuff that was going on. So maybe in the beginning he didn't realize how hard it would be to come back or how it would actually act up and affect him being able to throw a baseball, which is, the simplest of things you should be able to do. So now that it's years later and he hasn't been taking the field with any consistency, if at all, I think he's got to come to that realization. I think he's got to be honest with it, and I think everybody else has to be honest with it as well.
And he's a mature guy, too. I'm pretty confident in saying that David's perspective on this is like, don't cry for me. He even made a joke about this at a press conference late last season. He's like, guys, your questions are like I died. I mean, he's a guy who's now into his mid-30s, who has a beautiful wife, beautiful baby, tens and more, actually not tens,
yeah, but he
hundreds of millions of dollars. No, but what I'm saying, Sal, is that I think he has a good perspective. He's giving it his all, but he knows this isn't a tragedy, and if he doesn't make it back, it's been a great run.
But this is what he loves to do more than anything else in the world, and it's not like he walked away on his own terms. He had to take it away from him.
Well, it is, and I think that's one thing that's really difficult for any player at all is to have something taken away, and I think maybe there's a little bit of that going in here. Instead of going back out there and not performing and having to have it taken away from him as being this guy that the Mets have seen and have looked to over the last decade.
Invested in.
I think that would be really, really difficult for anybody to take. So maybe this is him setting up for that ability to go out on his own terms. Maybe he's getting okay with it himself at some level, and you're seeing a stream of consciousness more than some negative attitude.
Well,
go ahead, Andy.
He's a smart guy in every respect, but also I'm sure that he sees what the Mets want, which is a tough reality, which is that they're better, and I feel bad saying this, but they're better collecting the insurance money than paying him what is a market rate from when he was a different kind of player, having that eat up a lot of the budget. And really, so he's not, I'm sure, getting a lot of encouragement from the organization to hey, get back out there as fast as you can, da-da-da. So David's thing has always been earn my money, help the team. For real, he means it, right? Yeah, I think you would agree with that. And so right now, helping the team might mean, not getting all that money.